Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of sleeper OP or underrated champions, build setups, or rune setups for patch 9.19. So starting things off in the top lane, the first pick here is going to be Heimerdinger, and Heimerdinger right now is just such a good counter to so many of the things being played in the top lane. He got buffed in this patch as well, so his Q got buffed by 5% AP ratio. His E also got a buff. The stun duration got increased by 0.25 seconds. So with the buffs and also with him just being such a great pick against the meta champions in the top lane, he's just a super underrated top laner for patch 9.19. He pretty much doesn't have a bad matchup right now into the bruiser top laners, does well into Darius, Mordekaiser, Riven, Renekton, Jax, the list just goes on and on. If any of these champions really try to jump in on him, try to trade with him in the laning phase, you just gotta hold your stun with Heimerdinger. Whenever your stun is up, an enemy bruiser top cannot really look to even engage on you or jump onto you, because if they do, you just throw the stun down when they jump onto you, your turrets do a ton of damage, and you're just gonna win the trade every single time. And then for the rune setup on Heimer top, you can either run Comet or Electrocute. I would run the Electrocute in most melee matchups. I think Electrocute just gives you a lot more kill threat in the laning phase. Comet is going to be better though if you're into range matchups, because chances are in range matchups it is going to be more difficult to proc that Electrocute, whereas in melee matchups you can weave in the autos. It's just going to be much easier for you to proc that Electrocute. So for the next top lane pick here, Mordekaiser does have a new build setup going around on him that is having some pretty good success. It is a Nashor's Tooth. So Nashor's Tooth, usually pros are going for it like second or third item right now on Mordekaiser. A lot of them still like to go Liandry's first and then usually a Nashor second. The Nashor's there does allow you to split push a lot better on Mordekaiser, so it is a pretty situational build. If you're looking to team fight with Mordekaiser, if you are looking to just group with your team, then I wouldn't really go for Nashor's. I'd just go for your standard build setup of like Liandry's, Rylai's, throw Proto Belt in there sometimes. But if you are looking to split push, if your team is really far behind, if you're really the only fed member on your team, then you can go for the Nashor's. It does give you more split push potential. It does allow you to take down towers a lot faster, so it's a setup that is definitely situational, but it can work if you are looking to split push. Taking a look at a jungle pick now, Rek'Sai got two different buffs in this patch. Base armor got increased by 3, so it does make her a little bit more durable in the jungle now. Does increase her dueling potential against AD junglers in this patch. Her Q got a buff to where it is now going to work on towers, so that also does increase her snowball potential in the early game. Whenever you get a successful gank off with Rek'Sai now, your ability to take that one extra plate, or just your ability to take a couple more plates in this patch, does allow her to get a bit of extra gold in the early game, allows her to hit her early to mid game spike a little bit sooner. So Rek'Sai is pretty underrated right now in this patch. She's always been a pretty underrated pick. A lot of people just don't like to play her in solo queue because I guess she's more of a boring jungler and she isn't as fun to play as some other junglers are, but she's definitely a viable pick now in this patch. So if you are looking for a new jungler to pick up, then Rek'Sai is a solid option. And then for the second jungle pick here, Nocturne is someone who I think is pretty underrated for 9.19. He got buffed back in 9.16, so a few patches ago now, but those buffs did really help him out, but nobody's really taken notice of it at all. Nobody's really picking up Nocturne after the buffs he did receive a couple of patches ago. He does do very well into most AP junglers at the moment, so things like Elise, Evelynn, Nidalee, he does great into because his spell shield just allows him to block a ton of their damage. If you can time that correctly, you're gonna win out on the duel against those AP junglers pretty much every single time. With Nocturne, you have some of the best level 6 ganks in the game as well, so you farm to your level 6, you get that 6, you get a gank down bot lane, and if you get a double kill bot, then you pretty much just snowball the game. You just keep going bot lane, keep using your ult there, just snowball super hard, and you can have a lot of success by doing that with Nocturne in this patch. Now, a pretty unconventional mid lane pick, but a great counter to melee mid lane champions is Renekton. So Renekton there with the press the attack, with the ignite in the mid lane, can do super well into melee mid lane champions. He's got great all-in potential at level 3. Melee champions can't really look to do a ton against Renekton in the laning phase. Like champions like Yasuo, Zed, Kassadin, Katarina, Echo, the list just goes on and on. Pretty much every single melee matchup Renekton can smash in the mid lane, and he can just look to snowball the game out of control because his matchups are so favorable. Once you do get your Spear of Sojin too, it makes it so that your 1v1 potential is pretty much unbeatable. If you get Spear of Sojin, you have your ultimate up. There's really no mid lane champion that can look to even outduel you as long as you do use your combo correctly and as long as you're not super far behind. If you've stayed even at least with your opponent and you get to your Spear of Sojin, then you can just take over the game after that point. And then for the second mid lane pick, it is going to be Galio. So Galio is on here for similar reasons to Renekton. Melee matchups are just super good for Galio right now in 9.19. Yasuo is the most picked mid laner right now in this patch. You do have Zed, Katarina, you got Echo who just got buffed recently, you got a Kayle. So these matchups are so good for Galio because he is going to be running the Aftershock. If those melee champions try to get into range of his taunt, you just taunt them with the Galio. You end up using your passive, your Q on them. You're going to have your Aftershock proc, so it's going to be very difficult for the enemies to look to trade into you, but you're still going to be able to get a ton of damage off on them, and you're going to win trades pretty much every single time that your Aftershock is up. So he's just a pretty easy to execute mid lane champion, but he is very strong at the same time. And then one more mid lane pick here, Kayle mid is something that has been seeing a rise over the past week or so. Doingby, who does play for the #1 team in China right now, has been spamming Kayle in solo queue, just playing it a ton over the past week or so. Faker has even taken note of that, and Faker has been playing her over the past couple of days here, and it's just a pick that after the mini rework she did receive a few patches ago has become much stronger just overall, much stronger for solo queue, much stronger for pro play. You get your range form at level 6 now with Kayle, so it allows you to have a much greater impact earlier on into the game. You are going to be going for a Gunblade rush a lot of time on this Kayle mid pick. Gunblade into Nashor's and then into Rageblade is what does work best in solo queue for most of the time. There's definitely a lot of other variations to the build setup on Kayle right now. Doingby does like to go for a Luden's Echo rush some games, Luden's Echo. He sometimes goes for the Nashor's rush into Rageblade, so there's a lot of different build variations. I would say that for solo queue though, the Gunblade into Nashor's and Rageblade is just going to give you a very, very solid 3-item spike. With the Kleptomancy on the Kayle mid in those melee matchups, you are going to be able to spam that out. You're going to be able to get a lot of Klepto stacks in lane. You're going to hit a much earlier mid-game spike on the pick, and if you can get to your items on Kayle earlier on in the game, if you can get to your core items pretty quickly, then you're just going to have a super big impact on games, and you're going to be able to carry very, very well with Kayle mid. And then if we head down to the bot lane now for a couple picks, Veigar AD carry or Veigar AP carry is something that Reckless has been spamming in solo queue over the past week or so, and it's a pick that we have seen in previous metas a little bit. Veigar down in the bot lane has been a pick that's had some success in previous metas. Right now, it's a pick that when you pair it up with an aggressive support, your level 6 all in is just so nasty. Before level 6, you kind of just want to just farm up, farm your Q in the laning phase. If your support makes a pick, then you can look to follow up on that, but for the most part you just want to be getting your Q stacks until you get that level 6. Once you do hit your 6 with Veigar, look to be getting a pick with your E, or look to play off your support getting a pick, because if you're playing with say a Leona or a Nautilus and they just press R on the opponent, get a stun off, then it's a guaranteed kill at level 6 there. So it's just a pretty easy to execute champion who's got a lot of snowball potential once you do get to level 6. So just make sure you don't die pre-6, make sure you're not playing too over aggressive before you hit that point, because as long as you go even in the laning phase, then you're gonna win at level 6 in most matchups. And then for the second bot lane carry pick, it is going to be Syndra. So Syndra down in the bot lane is something that Reckless has been spamming as well over the past week or so. Veigar and Syndra are the two picks he has been playing the most, and the Syndra pick, it can definitely have a little bit more early game presence than the Veigar pick. You do have a little bit more kill pressure in the laning phase with Syndra. You got more poke potential with your Q. If you hit a stun in lane and you have like a Leona, or you got a Zyra who can follow up on that stun, you do have a lot of kill pressure before you hit that 6. But that's not to say your level 6 all in isn't good with this pick either. Your level 6 with Syndra is pretty insane as well. I'd say that it's even maybe a little bit stronger than the Veigar level 6. So I do think if you can play Syndra well down in the bot lane, she can be a very devastating pick at the moment. The Veigar pick is definitely a little bit more easier to execute. It's one that doesn't take as much time to get used to, and it doesn't take as much skill to execute, that's for sure. But I would say that if you can play Syndra to a pretty good level, she is a pick definitely worth playing down in the bot lane for 9.19. And then lastly, to round it all out here, for support pick, it is going to be Gragas. So Gragas in the support role. Support is actually probably his better role in this patch right now. Jungle Gragas did just get nerfed recently, or it more so got targeted in the last patch here. So support Gragas is a pick that can work very well. It can do very well into a lot of melee matchups down in the bot lane. Blitzcrank is being played a ton right now, and Gragas is a pretty good counter pick. Or I wouldn't say a counter pick, but it's a pretty good pick that can neutralize the Blitzcrank in the laning phase. If you get hooked in by the Blitzcrank as the Gragas, you're just gonna be able to proc your aftershock with your E. You're gonna be able to back out very easily and not take a lot of burst damage there. So it's a matchup that Gragas can do pretty well in. Once you do hit the level 6 with Gragas, you do have a lot of kill pressure as well. If you know how to combo well with this champion, then your burst potential, your all in at level 6 is some of the best for any support champion in the game. It's definitely a little bit more difficult to execute than something like a Nautilus, so you do need a lot more practice on this Gragas pick in order to make it work. But if you do put the time into it, it's definitely a pick that can carry very well in solo queue. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. Those are the 10 most underrated or sleeper OP picks, builds, or rune setups for patch 9.19. So if you guys did enjoy this video, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.